Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive. Today we're taking on something that affects us all. Tariffs.
Tariffs.
Yeah. You know those taxes on imported goods?
Oh, okay. Got it.
It's like when something crosses a border, it might have to pay a little entry fee, like a passport stamp, but for products.
Interesting.
We're going to explore how tariffs work, the reasons governments use them, and what they mean for your wallet.
Makes sense.
And of course, for the whole U.S. economy too.
It's a fascinating topic.
It really is.
I mean, tariffs might seem simple at first,
Uh-huh.
but they have all these ripple effects. You wouldn't believe it.
I bet. Like what?
Well, they can impact the price of your morning coffee.
No way.
Yeah. And they even affect relationships between entire countries. Crazy, huh?
Wild. Okay, so let's break it down. Governments use tariffs for a bunch of reasons, right?
Right.
Like they want to protect domestic industries.
Exactly.
Or they try to even out those trade imbalances.
Huh?
But is it actually that straightforward?
Well, the idea is that making imported goods more expensive will encourage folks to buy domestically produced ones.
Yeah.
This can protect jobs in those industries.
Right.
And maybe, just maybe, boost the local economy a bit.
I see.
But it's rarely a simple equation.
Gotcha. So what does all the data tell us about the U.S. economy?
Well, the Congressional Budget Office, they do a lot of economic analysis, right?
Yeah.
They found that recent tariff increases have caused a little dip in real output.
Oh, no.
Yeah, about 0.3%. It's like taking a small slice out of everyone's economic pie.
Not great.
No. And then you have the Tax Foundation.
Yeah.
They focus more on tax policy, right?
Right.
Well, they project a potential loss of 142,000 jobs in the long run.
Wow.
If tariffs keep rising, that is.
Yikes. So maybe not the win-win for the economy that people hope
Yeah.
for.
Not quite.
But what about the trade deficit? Don't tariffs help shrink that? Like if we import less because things are pricier, wouldn't that gap shrink?
It's a common thought. People think tariffs automatically fix the trade deficit.
Yeah.
But it's not that simple. Think of it like squeezing a balloon.
Yeah.
You might reduce the deficit with one country,
Uh-huh.
but it often just pops up somewhere else.
Oh.
Tariffs can actually make the deficit bigger with other countries.
How so?
Well, businesses start seeking out different sources for their goods.
So the problem doesn't just vanish.
Nope. It just moves around.
Okay, so no magic solution there. But the government does get more money from tariffs.
But true. Tariffs do generate revenue for the government.
And how much is that?
Around $79 billion currently.
Wow.
But, and this is the big question,
Yeah.
are the costs that come with those tariffs worth all that revenue?
That's a great point. And speaking of costs, what about businesses caught in the middle of all this?
Yeah,
They got to be feeling the pressure, right?
absolutely. Tariffs have been a real roller coaster for businesses, especially small and medium-sized ones.
How so?
Well, their costs for materials and components they import, those go way up.
Oh, I see.
There's a beer company, for example, based in Virginia.
Okay.
They got hit with a 5.5% surcharge
For what?
just for the tap handles they import from China.
Ouch. 5.5% just for tap handles.
All because of tariffs.
That's gotta hurt, especially for a smaller business. So what are they doing about it?
A lot of them have to raise prices just to stay afloat,
That makes sense.
which of course impacts you, the consumer.
Yeah, definitely.
A bicycle company in New York, for example,
Yeah.
they had to hike up their prices by 18 to 22%
Wow. 18 to 22%.
because of tariffs.
So it's like a chain reaction.
Exactly.
Tariffs make costs higher for businesses. Businesses have to raise prices.
Right.
And then ultimately, consumers end up paying more.
Precisely. And the thing is, the impact on consumers goes beyond just paying more at the register.
Oh, I see.
Lots of economic studies have shown this,
What have they shown?
that consumers end up shouldering most of the burden from tariffs.
Through higher prices.
Yep. It reduces their overall purchasing power.
Because their money doesn't go as far anymore.
Exactly.
I can totally see why this is such a hot topic.
Yeah.
It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. It affects real people's lives every day.
Right.
And speaking of impacts, you mentioned earlier tariffs could be tied to inflation. Can you break that down for us? Like, how does that work?
Sure. When you have tariffs on a lot of different goods,
Yeah.
that can cause inflationary pressure. Think of it like this.
Okay.
If the price of imported goods goes up because of tariffs,
Right.
it creates a ripple effect through the whole economy. Prices for everything go up. Raw materials, finished products.
Oh, wow.
And when prices go up, your money just doesn't buy as much anymore.
Makes sense.
There was even one analysis that predicted proposed tariffs could make inflation 2 percentage points higher.
2 percentage points. Whoa, that's a big jump.
It is, especially if it keeps happening.
So let's put this in perspective for our listeners. How much could this all cost the average household each year?
Well, some estimates say that these proposed tariffs could cost the average household $1,700 every year.
$1,700. Oof, that's a real hit to the wallet.
It is.
So the original idea might have been to help certain industries, but it seems like there are some serious unintended consequences.
Definitely. For consumers and the entire economy.
So it's a risky move for sure.
It's a delicate balancing act, and the discussion is far from over.
Back again. Before the break, we were talking about how tariffs impact, the U.S. economy, businesses too, and of course your own spending.
Yeah.
But this isn't just a U.S. thing, right?
Yeah.
It's global.
Right.
The world's economy, it's so interconnected, like a giant spider web.
I like that. A spider web.
You tug one thread, then the whole thing vibrates.
Exactly. What happens in one part of the world market
Yeah.
can ripple out everywhere.
And tariffs are definitely one of those things that can shake things up.
Absolutely.
So how do they, mess with this whole global system?
Well, for one, they disrupt trade relationships. Relationships that have been in place for a long time.
Oh, I see.
And they make global markets really uncertain.
Makes sense. Like, nobody knows what to expect anymore.
Right. And then countries might retaliate.
Retaliate.
Yeah, for their own tariffs.
Oh, like a trade war.
Exactly, tit for tat.
Wow.
And that can really hurt businesses,
Makes sense.
mess up supply chains,
Uh-huh.
and ultimately it hurts consumers all over the world.
So we're not just talking about a slowdown here in the U.S.
Nope.
We're talking about a potential global slowdown.
Potentially, yeah.
That's a little unsettling.
It is a concern, but it just shows how connected we all are.
Yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
let's zoom out even further.
Okay.
How do tariffs affect the balance of power between countries?
Ooh, now we're getting into geopolitics.
Right.
They've basically become a tool. It's a tool.
Almost like a bargaining chip in international relations.
Oh, so?
Well, you can use them to pressure other countries,
Mm-hmm.
influence negotiations,
Mm-hmm.
even try to reshape those global supply chains.
Wow. So it adds another whole layer to this.
It does. It's complex.
It's super complex. So, like with everything else, it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah,
Tariffs, they can protect some domestic interests,
they can.
but they can also, disrupt global stability.
Right. It's a tough balancing act.
It really is. So let's bring it back down to earth for a sec.
Okay.
What can our listener do, to stay on top of all this?
It's a great question. Staying informed is key
Informed about what?
about any proposed tariffs and what they might mean.
Okay. Yeah.
Pay attention to the news.
Uh-huh.
Look for analyses, economic analyses from, reliable sources.
Right.
And follow the policy debates.
Keep up with it all.
Yeah. And don't just stick to one source.
Good point.
Get a range of perspectives. Especially nowadays, right? There's so much info flying around.
It's true.
You got to be a critical thinker.
Absolutely.
So beyond staying informed, what can people do, practically?
Well, think about your spending habits.
Okay.
And financial planning, too.
Makes sense, especially with all this tariff stuff.
Exactly. Think about how tariffs might change the prices of things you buy regularly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe look for other options.
Yeah.
Or find domestic suppliers,
If you can.
if you can. And diversification is always important when you're investing.
Diversification.
Yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Especially in times like these.
Exactly. When things are uncertain.
That's good advice. Be prepared and flexible.
Always a good idea.
So let's talk about a real-world example.
Okay.
You remember the U.S.-China trade war a few years back?
Oh, yeah.
That was a big one.
It was.
Shook things up globally. Can you give us a quick recap?
Sure. It started back in 2018. The Trump administration, they slapped tariffs on tons of Chinese goods.
Like billions of dollars worth.
Billions.
And why?
They wanted to shrink that trade deficit,
Uh-huh.
protect American jobs,
Right.
and address intellectual property concerns.
So a lot of goals.
Yeah. And China, of course, retaliated.
They do.
They put their own tariffs on American stuff,
Like what?
agricultural products mostly, and some other key exports.
So it went back and forth.
Back and forth. This escalation.
It really did. And
Uh,
that
uh.
affected the whole global economy.
Yeah, supply chains got disrupted,
Right.
costs for businesses went up,
Yeah.
and it just created this, this feeling of uncertainty.
It was a tense time.
It was. Everyone felt it.
Big companies, everyday people.
Everyone.
So what happened in the end? Did it work?
It's hard to say. It was mixed.
How so?
Well, the trade deficit with China did get a bit smaller,
Okay.
but it got bigger with other countries.
Oh, right. Because businesses found new suppliers
Exactly.
and jobs.
Some American jobs were created,
Uh-huh.
but some were lost too.
As the industries adjusted.
Right. And on intellectual property, there was a little progress,
Right.
but there's still tension between the U.S. and China.
Yeah, those two economic giants.
Right.
So complex situation with no easy answers.
Exactly.
But the U.S.-China trade war is a good example
For a great example.
of how connected the global economy is
Uh-huh.
and what happens when countries try to protect themselves too much.
It's a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
We need to think carefully about trade policy.
Be strategic?
Right. We need to promote fair trade,
Uh-huh.
protect our own interests, sure,
Of course.
but also encourage global cooperation.
Working together.
These trade wars, they hurt everyone in the end.
They do. So it's clear that tariffs are powerful.
Yeah.
They have big consequences.
Huge. They can protect industries.
Bring in money for governments.
Right.
Even affect, global power dynamics.
It's true.
But they can also mess up global trade.
Absolutely.
Make things more expensive for businesses.
Uh-huh.
And ultimately, consumers pay the price.
It's a delicate balancing act. And there's no one solution.
That's for sure. We're back, wrapping up our deep dive on tariffs. Man, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But, after all this, I keep wondering,
Yeah.
what happens next? Like with tariffs, I mean.
Ah, the future of tariffs.
Yeah. Are we going to see, more protectionist policies? Or will things swing the other way?
It's tough to say. Predicting the future, especially with economics and trade, it's always a challenge.
I bet.
But we can kind of look at what's happening now, see where things might be headed. One thing's for sure, though,
What's that?
the tariff debate. It's not going away anytime soon.
True. People have strong opinions on this stuff.
They do, and the
Right.
political scene can change so fast.
It really can. So after everything we've talked about today,
Uh-huh.
what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think it's important to remember that tariffs are a powerful tool.
Okay.
But they're not a magic fix for everything.
Right.
They can do good things. They can also have negative consequences.
It's a mixed bag.
It is. And how well they work really depends on, well, everything else going on.
The context.
Exactly. We have to think about tariffs, in a nuanced way. How do they affect businesses, consumers, the whole economy?
Right. You can't just say tariffs are good or bad.
Exactly. It's about understanding the trade-offs
Weighing the options.
and making smart decisions based on all the information.
I see.
And it's so important for everyone to, stay informed.
About what's happening with trade policies.
Exactly. These decisions, they affect us all.
They really do, like how much things cost,
Uh-huh.
what jobs are available in our communities. It's big stuff.
It is. We can't just sit back and let it happen.
We got to be involved.
We have a voice, and we need to use it, whether it's, talking to our representatives
Making our opinions heard.
or just staying informed.
Yeah.
We all have a part to play in shaping the future of trade.
Couldn't agree more. This deep dive has been eye-opening. We went from the basics all the way to the global impact.
It's a big topic.
It is. But before we sign off,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with a question to think about.
Okay.
So, knowing what you now know about tariffs, how should we be using them going forward?
Oh, that's a good one.
Maybe not using them at all. It's tough, right?
It is. There's no easy answer.
Nope. But by talking about it, having these discussions,
I'm making informed choices.
we can build a trade system that works for everyone.
Absolutely. A system that's, fair and sustainable.
Well said. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
Happy to be here.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this tariff deep dive. Keep learning, stay curious. And that's it for the deep dive. See you next time.